It's time for the Big Three. Today's topics: GOP versus GOP, best friends, and this week's must-read. So let's bring in the Big Three panel. Washington Bureau Chief of the Chicago Sun-Times, Lynn, Professor of Political Science at Hiram College, Jason Johnson, and Republican strategist, Joe Watkins. Hi, guys. Good to see you all.
Hey, Alex.
So let's go, ladies, first with you, Lynn. We had Sarah Palin speaking in Iowa last night, lashing out at Republicans who agreed to end the government shutdown. Let's listen.
Remember this? They promised that they would do everything in their power to fight against socialized medicine, against Obamacare. But when it came time to stand and defund it, they waved the white flag of surrender and they threw under the bus the good guys who did stand up and fight for us.
So Palin also said it's time to, quote, stiffen our spines for the 2014 midterms. Lynn, where is this growing fracture going to take the GOP, especially at the midterms?
Well, I think it might, in the primaries, produce some more. It will help wipe out moderate Republicans and centrist Republicans, and it will get either in swing districts marginal figures who may not win. But here's what we now know, that because of the botched rollout of Obamacare, this has turned out probably better than the Republicans expected. The shutdown cost everybody a lot of money. And there's a nickname, Alex, for what the hardliners were called in the Republican caucus, and it was the insane caucus because they went in there without a plan on what to do.
Yeah, but don't you think if the rollout writes itself, I mean, that's going to take away a lot of the steam for the GOP, and we have a lot of time for that to happen. I mean, we got a year.
Right, absolutely. But for the moment, just saying delay, defund, you could take another stab at it now because there are some flaws. But at the time, just going in for the shutdown, you know, we might still be in a shutdown, Alex, if we hadn't had the debt ceiling pressure to force an end to it.
So, Joe, I'm curious, do you want Sarah Palin speaking for your party? Because she's trashing people who could actually win.
Well, a lot of Republicans, of course, wanted to make sure the government didn't shut down. And at the same time, many Americans, Republicans and Democrats, are not pleased with the way the rollout took place for Obamacare. It obviously didn't go out the way it was supposed to. And a lot of Republicans are still very much opposed to the Affordable Care Act because of the problems that it causes on the individual mandate side as well as on the employer mandate side. But that being said, the Republican Party is a big tent. It's a growing tent. It's a tent that you're going to see is going to include more and more Americans. You've got Governor Christie, of course, who demonstrated that Republicans do have the capacity to attract Democrats and independents in a major way, because his election this past Tuesday certainly was a shot heard around the world, you might say.
61%, that's true. Hey, Jason, where does this infighting leave the Democrats? You know, Karen Finney was on with me yesterday, and she said all the Dems need to do is just sit back and watch Republicans fight it out. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. A wise union general once said, don't go anywhere near a circular firing squad. You just, if the Republicans are going to shoot each other and they're going to get in trouble, let them do it. And I want to point this out, especially in a place like Iowa, which is so key for 2016. Sarah Palin is on 14 minutes and 59 seconds of her 15 minutes of fame. She has little or no influence outside of the hardcore base of her party anymore. So no, the Republicans don't want her speaking for them because she's not someone who, you know, all of her endorsements in 2010 didn't work. Nothing she's done since 2008 has had any sort of relevance one way or another. The Republicans are going to keep fighting. They'll do fine, but they don't want Sarah Palin involved in this process.
All right, guys, I got to keep going here to topic 2, and I'll stick with you, Jason, with the scandal relative to the Miami Dolphins. In an upcoming interview, alleged bully Richie Incognito says everyone has his relationship with Jonathan Martin all wrong. He says Martin was his best friend on the team. Are we all missing something here, you think, Jason?
Yeah, I'm not missing a thing. Let's see. One guy says, I want to kill your family, and the other guy calls him a half N-word. These guys aren't friends, and this is a demonstration of the total incompetence of the Miami Dolphins, and I'm sure tomorrow they're going to lose on Monday Night Football. Look, the fact of the matter is, if you have an organized locker room, you can haze people, you can be mean to people, you can make fun of them, but you don't have to go that far. And in the end, Richie Incognito got himself kicked off this team, not just because he said something racist and offensive, but because obviously he had established a reputation reputation of going too far. So I don't believe a thing this guy has to say. I feel sorry for both of them, and Miami's going to be back in the draft this fall as a perpetually losing team.
Joe, I want to throw up something on the New York Daily News. There's a quote here which essentially is talking about the Miami Dolphin players, and they're supporting Incognito more than they are Jonathan Martin. I mean, does that make sense to you?
Well, I understand that. I mean, I'm a former athlete, a very former athlete, unfortunately. But I know what it's like when you play in a team, and sometimes in the heat of the battle, things get said that aren't nice. And people sometimes cross the line, go too far. And that's clearly the case with Richie this time. He went far too far. But that being said, it's something that can be fixed, I think. I mean, he's done the right thing. You got to apologize. You got to state where you stand on this thing. And the Dolphins still have some work to clean this thing up.
Okay. Real quick, Lynn, think this is just typical hazing or something worse?
Well, I don't even think typical hazing is something that should be tolerated in a lot of situations. You know, some of it's in the eyes of the beholder, and it's, you know, snapping a towel behind, you know, a little towel snapping is one thing. But even going close to the things that Incognito is accused of doing just seems something that you shouldn't be doing, whether it's a sports organization or any.
Yeah. All right, must-reads. Lynn, you start. What's yours?
Well, there was a good story in the Washington Post about where the Tea Party is going that was interesting. It kind of fits in what we were talking about with Sarah Palin. And I just think it's a real good briefing on where things stand now.
Okay. Jason, how about you? What's yours?
It's a great article on Talking Points memo called "Why Do Poor People Waste Money on Luxury Goods?" And it was inspired in part by this young man who was discriminated against at the Barneys for buying a $300 belt. And it really is an in-depth discussion about why those of us who are often fortunate economically judge poor people for spending the way they do. And the idea is really you have to at least not look poor even if you are poor when you're trying to get a job.
Interesting. Joe, yours?
Yeah, I went to Racine, Wisconsin. The Times Journal had a wonderful editorial piece that I thought was very, very well written. It was very sober and sane. It wasn't yelling and screaming at the president, just saying we got to fix the Affordable Care Act to make sure it works for Americans.
Okay. And I've so got to go. Joe, Jason, Lynn, it's good to see you guys. I'm being counted down. I got 3 seconds. So